Okay. Hey, do you want to turn that light on?
Yes, I do.
Forgot. Hey guys, welcome to 51st Chapters. This is session 2, well, session 10, but technically this is the second session of the Plot Your Novel in 3 weeks. So welcome. Hopefully you know what you're here for. I'm going to move this so that we don't have to
look at ourselves.
Yeah. I know. If you're here, go ahead and chat us. That'll be fun.
And we might see it this time because
yes.
Nikki seems to be opening up the chat window
I know.
now.
I am opening it up right now. It's so good.
Oh,
okay.
This is Nikki Triunfo.
Yes, and this is Heather Clark.
Hi.
If you do not already have it, go run and grab a beat sheet. It should be in the comments of this webinar. Should be a link to the handout. There we go. If you do not already have it. Okay, we're live. At least we know that. Okay. So we're just going to start right in. I do have homework from some people, which is awesome. I didn't pick what. I'll just read them all because it's just a lot of lines.
Awesome.
So I can just read it. So if you turn in your homework, then I will read it and you'll get that back tomorrow. And everybody who won the homework grading last time already got that back last Friday. Okay, so we're just going to start right up. A beat sheet is a plotting device to try to help you get a plot onto paper, an overview of a plot onto one sheet of paper using the common steps of a story. Mm-hmm. And it comes from this book, which we talk about all the time.
And a lot of times as you start to fill out your beat sheet, you're going to realize that you already have in your head most of these elements, but sometimes you're not sure what order they go in.
Right.
And then sometimes something is kind of missing in your story and you're not sure what, and you can usually figure out a framework for that.
Right, right. So we're just going to basically talk about what it is. So you can, hopefully you have several copies of this beat sheet. Otherwise, you can just start taking notes onto a separate piece of paper too. But go ahead and take notes if you want to on what these are, and then we're going to refill this out, and we're going to fill it out for setting, character, all of those things. Eventually, you'll have just one beat sheet that you can pretty much write your whole novel from.
Right.
Okay. Opening image. Tell us
opening image is just what you first see when you, like, if you're in a movie, it's the first kind of thing as we kind of pan in on the story, and we're like, what do we see here? So we've got Harry Potter, and he's the boy in the cupboard under the stairs, and everyone hates him, and Dudley Dursley is fat and annoying, and that's our opening image. And no one loves me, and my parents are gone.
Right. And you're going to want to have 3 to 5 things here that are right or are wrong.
Right.
So, and I'm filling that out as we speak, so you probably can't see it, but 3 things that are right or wrong. So Anne of Green Gables, well, not, the first one's a little different, but usually like a typical Anne of Green Gables book, because there were like 6 sequels, starts out, everything is right. 3 to 5 things in that world are right. And then the whole novel is like, something might go wrong. But then, by the end of the novel, things are right again. So that's a very, like, it's not super high stakes. Well, I mean, it feels high stakes Anne of Green Gables because she loves all the sameness.
Right.
Anyway, right.
That's true. Right. She doesn't want to shake up.
Right. So even though she grows up, and even though, you know, people die, and even though things happen, Green Gables is still Green Gables. The feel is, so everything goes back to being right. And so, but a typical way to do it is that you have 3 to 5 things that are wrong.
Right. Have Dudley is a big fat bully.
Yes.
And Mom and Dad, Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon hate me, and I live in the cupboard under the stairs with the spider. I mean, we have a lot of things that are wrong. Yeah.
And then also with the opening image, you want to have the hint at what could potentially either make the problems for all the right things, or the hint as to what could be the solution for all the wrong things. So with Harry Potter, we have the hint of magic.
Right.
Just tiny little hints of it, and it's so fun. Right. So the reader's like so excited to see.
Something's going to happen. Something will change this awful life he lives in.
Yeah, something, you know, is going to change it up. So, so that's your opening image. This is before anything changes. So a lot of you guys have probably heard of a
Inciting incident?
Inciting incident. Yes, this is before the inciting incident.
And sometimes I think that's a mistake that we make, is we try to put the inciting incident like on page 1.
Having been a judge for writing contests, new authors almost always skip
the opening image, letting you settle in, which is hard because
it's so hard.
Sometimes, I would just say, sometimes writing that opening image is difficult because you also get told when you write the opening image, we just started with her thinking about things. Right. Nothing was happening.
So we're going to write one thing else. You're going to write one more thing. And you're going to write the word significant. It's going to be a phrase. Significant to original world. What we mean is Harry Potter, at the beginning of Harry Potter, it is his birthday, which is significant to his current world. Okay? Or it's Dudley's birthday?
I think it's Harry's.
No, because he turns 11 at the letter.
Okay.
Right, so it's Dudley's birthday. But anyway, it's a special day and they go out. Remember, they go to the zoo, right?
There's something that makes
it's
it
still a
different.
special day, but it's not the special.
It's not
that's
the
gonna
owls are
launch
here,
them.
I'm a wizard.
Yes. So for Hunger Games, it is the reaping day or whatever the heck they call it.
Which is significant, and
Which
that's
is
why we start the
significant,
story there.
But it's not the event, the pulling of the name, that launches her into the Hunger Games.
Right.
That comes at the end of chapter 1. So a very classic way to do it is to have your opening image, again, be something in your original world, and then that event or something in there changes so that we launch into this new adventure. And we usually launch into that at the end of chapter 1 or chapter 2.
And I think a lot of the reason that a lot of authors have to write that first chapter like 60 million times is because sometimes we don't know what that initial first thing is going to be that's not the inciting incident yet, and our readers will just keep feeling wrong until they eventually feel right.
That's one thing that I would like to point out. As you go through this, I want you to be able to internalize story structure naturally and fluidly and be able to talk about it. But when you write, just throw this, put it off to the side and get down on paper what you know is working.
Right. And, you know, I will say this, when she says, I'm pointing to Nikki's boobs now, but
she says, I can't believe you just said it on camera. Boobs. Just kidding.
So when she says that you need the 3 to 5 things that are right or wrong, and in modern literature, we're talking usually the things that are wrong. So when we come up on this problem, that's what's missing so much of the time when I read a first chapter. I come into that first chapter and I go, I have no sense of what this character wants. I have no sense of anything lacking in this character's life. I have no sense of, we're just feeling things, we're talking to a person, we're out of school,
or
whatever.
a lot of action is happening, but we don't know how it's going to change the main character because we don't know the main character enough to know what's going to change.
So pretty much do anything you want in your first chapter, but the tension needs to revolve around me discovering through whatever's happening in that first chapter what is broken and what needs to be fixed.
Okay, and then the next thing that we get to, and oh, by the way, the page numbers on here correspond to, these are totally approximate. This is just to sort of give you an idea, a ballpark. If you were to write a novel that was 330 pages long then you would hit the end, or let's see, I think it's the end. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You would have the theme stated by about around page 15. You would have the setup ending by about page 30 to 36. You would have the catalyst by about 36. You would start the debate, and we'll talk about what all these are. But anyway, so that gives you a rough idea. So you can't be getting to the catalyst by page 300 or even page 60. Your reader, this is the thing that your reader's so savvy, and we've talked about this a little bit in other webinars, so I don't, again, if you're feeling like you need more help with this, then watch the first 3 webinars. But your reader is looking for your setup. If you're not getting to your setup until page 60,
they don't trust you to tell the story.
Well, or they've already picked in their head what the story is about, and then you take a major left turn on page 60, and they're like, what the crap is going on? But I'm getting ahead of myself, because that's really more for editing. So don't worry about that. For right now,
for planning,
just let's get our thoughts out.
Figure out what the 3 things are that are wrong. That's all you have to figure out, really.
Okay, and then for theme stated, tell us what a theme is. I hate defining theme.
I hate it too. That was really rude of you, Nikki. But so basically, in my book that I'll just give an example. So in the book that I just, it can usually for me it's kind of like a 1-sentence statement of what is going to be the growth arc, the emotional growth arc of the character, what they're going to learn, what's going to be important to them. And so I almost always, with my theme stated, I've heard it said, and I think it's in Save the Cat, that you kind of have your B story person possibly say it, or some sidekick or whatever. Someone will say it, and I almost always have someone unlikely to be wise say that.
Oh, like the wise fool.
The wise fool, or like the sidekick character who nobody thinks is going to say anything smart, or anyway, whoever it is. I typically either I have my main character state the theme wrong, because they're currently wrong-headed about it.
So they have an anti-hypothesis, wrong hypothesis.
So in my middle grade that's currently out on submission, the main character she's decided that the only way to become visible is by doing bad things. So anyway, she tells this other kid, you're invisible just like me, and I know how we can become visible. We just have to do bad things. And he's kind of like, do you really want anyone to see if you do bad things and you're like Shredder? Because he loves the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Anyway, and he's saying these kind of weird things, but he is totally stating the theme. He's in the very end of the book, you know, we're going to learn that like it's more important how you see yourself than that anyone else would see you, but they're going to start talking about that, that theme early.
Right. So the theme, this is how a story arc goes, okay? I'm going to draw on this paper. We think of a story, what's your story about? We tell people the outer conflict, but that's never a story. So that is, the outer conflict is a series of plot points. So if all you do is start running for your life, and then there's an adventure and you escape, but then there's another place where you run for your life, and then at the end of the book, it won't feel like the end. You'll just feel like, well, when's the next bomb going to go off that we have to run after?
Your book feels like a giant car chase.
It's just, that's all it is. There's no ending. So you just, I mean, your reader has no way of knowing that the big ending is the big ending unless you
just learned something. I mean, really, like it's a morality play every time, a little bit.
Every time. It's how stories are what makes sense of plot. So when we tell a story, like if I'm going to tell her a story about how like my dentist was rude to me or something like that, I have a series of events in my head. Those were the dentist acting a certain way. But the story is my reaction to it. It has a beginning,
how that
middle, and
impacted
end.
your life.
And at the end, I say, and now I'm not going to that dentist anymore. Or, and now, blah, blah, blah.
Have you ever had a friend where everything they tell you story-wise does not have the story? They just
yes! 8-year-olds.
Yes.
8-year-olds.
Don't have children. No,
That's so true. All they ever do is give you plot. That's all they do. They give you plot for 15 minutes straight. And
you're like, how do you feel about that? Can we get to the punchline?
You can't even pay attention. You're like, wait, which part of the day are we on again? I can't remember.
A dream.
Were you? Yes. And it's all. Every time I tell my daughter that, like, I'm like, okay, what happened? You know, because they're like fighting and somebody hit somebody, and she's always like, well, this morning when we woke up, I'm like, no, you can't start 20 hours ago.
When did the story actually begin? That is pertinent.
Don't do that. I hate it when she does that. Okay, anyway, so here's what the story is. The story is how to make sense of this outer conflict. So you have an inner conflict that makes it, because obviously your hero is a very strong, interesting,
proactive
person. So as soon as they come across this outer conflict, they would just solve it. Except that they have this inner conflict that you've already set up.
They have something they want. Tell them about. Can you? I don't know if you want to tell them about your story, but about the Border Patrol one.
No, we better not.
Okay.
In fact, we shouldn't spend
cool
too much.
Ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
We shouldn't spend too much time. I'm sorry, I'm talking so much because I love this. Anyway, so I just love so much.
Me too.
So
it's all we talk about when you're not.
I know. Anyway, so when you have an inner conflict, then an outer conflict comes, and that inner conflict makes it so that you cannot solve that outer conflict. Then your outer conflict is going along, and you have characters talking about how to solve that outer conflict, and it's going to reinforce how this inner conflict you have is unsolvable in your own head until you reach your max moment here of highest tension of both the outer and the inner. So what it is your inner conflict gets you into outer conflict, and then you solve the, I have to think this through. I think you solve the inner. I always solve the inner conflict first.
Yeah, right.
And
you get the missing piece. The power is in you.
The power to
before you make a decision that can solve the outer conflict.
But you know what? A lot of this is going to come in editing, and I'm so focused on editing because that's what we've talked about so much in these webinars. So I need to like get back into this brainstorming thing, and I apologize for that. Anyway, so think of the theme. So here are some possible ones. That's why I just looked this up. So pride goeth before the fall. Be careful what you wish for. Family is more important than money. Right. The people with the money make the rules. So you're just going to state a hypothesis, and then you're going to disprove it or prove it by the end.
And really awful stories are like all theme. They're just pounding you over the head with their theme.
Well, it depends on what you mean by awful, but yeah, definitely literary
stories, intensely didactic stories.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like ones that aren't published very, like
typically not published.
So when you pick it up and you're like, this is, I mean, I know this writer is good, but they're not quite there. A lot of times it is that they're hitting you on the head with this theme. Or they don't have it at all.
I think the third Hunger Games book did that.
Yeah, because she really wanted to make it like...
Her point was made. Yeah, anyways, go on.
No, her point was like, there is no point to life.
Right.
Which
was a sad point.
It's not the best point.
I didn't like it.
Especially for teens. Okay. Your setup basically is when you tell somebody about the story, your log line, you need to have gotten to your log line by about page 30. So just go ahead and write your log line. So they need to know, like if you have this setup where movies are good for examples, you have a setup where they're going to go to Vegas and they're going to win the lotto, but it's going to be ambiguous as to who actually won, and the only way they can keep the money is if their marriage stays intact, which is like the most ridiculous premise ever. There's that one called Vegas or whatever.
Okay.
But you're setting up at least the first part of that. The judge doesn't tell them they have to stay married, but they at least win the lottery.
And we've set up that their marriage is on the rocks. We've set up that staying together is impossible. We've set up
in this particular case,
we can see the iceberg and the Titanic, and we know eventually they will collide.
Right. Okay, and so the catalyst again is just really, don't worry about these words so much, but the catalyst basically is what sends us into, we've got the big parts of the story, so just write the big parts are done.
The catalyst is equivalent to the inciting incident as well.
So like with Harry Potter, he gets the letter.
The letter comes from Hagrid, you're a wizard, come on.
And then there's usually a little bit of a lull, and this is the debate. This is where it's not like we get the big letter and then whoosh, we're there. We need a little bit of time to process
those letters
that.
come and they come
right.
and he's thinking
but
about
even
it.
After he gets it, he doesn't just like show up at Hogwarts.
No, then
he
we
goes
get Diagon Alley.
He does the things. And so the debate is whether or not you as the MC are strong enough, smart enough, and determined enough. But determined is the really big one. Are you determined enough to see this through? So like in mine, I have a young, like 16-year-old whose sister is murdered, and we get all the way through here to the catalyst where she's the only one who believes that she was murdered, that police think it was an accident, her dad thinks this, so-and-so thinks that, and so no one's going to help her, and so that's the catalyst. If anyone's going to solve this murder, it's got to be her. But then the debate becomes, is she determined enough? Because the people who killed her sister are the very same gang members who are in her class and who she's terrified of. I mean, she never even spoken to them before. So like, she tries to speak to them, it goes poorly. You know, you want to show that this conflict is big. And so this would be like Katniss training.
Right, and like mine with my little girl who thinks she has to do bad things to be visible, she initially starts out really small, trying these little bad things, but fundamentally she's a good person. So her debate is, can I actually do bad things to become visible?
That's right. Okay, and then the break into Act 2 is your premise is completely exposed. So just say premise is done. So by this time, for Hunger Games, she's in the Hunger Game now. Like she's actually like arrived. Well, in her case, she's arrived at the capital city.
She is now going to be.
So you see how it's kind of ambiguous.
We know she will go into the arena.
When she's writing that book, she might not have known if her premise was going to be that she was starting the Hunger Game or if she was just going to be arriving in the capital. But you're going to make it feel like things are really starting to get going. You're not introducing more stuff. After you've got the premise going, then you start what's called the B story. And that's when you start talking about the theme again. So you want to give your readers a break from like plot fire hose. And you want to go on to the B story. And the B story is just a second story. This is a story, like capital letter A. And this is capital letter B, the next, a sub-story, like a side plot.
And would you say that's PETA?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
and it's usually the love story, right?
It's called
a love story.
In fact, you should write down, it's called a love story. It's usually a love story, even if it's not about romance.
It might be like a sidekick thing. Yeah. So my B story in that one is that she finds another invisible kid who she can convince he's invisible too, and together they can start this journey.
So when we start plotting, you want to start thinking about who is your love story person. And if it's a romance, you might have already met the romance person way up here. So if you've ever read or watched Legally Blonde, and these examples are straight from the book, so it's not like I'm wildly amazing to think of these examples. But so in Legally Blonde, she's already in a romance, right? So the romance that she's trying to pursue is the A story. That's the main story. The B story is she meets this little hairdresser who also wants a romance and is doing it all wrong. And so the main character is usually teaching a sub-character how to do exactly what the main character needs to know how to do in her A story.
Which is what I exactly do in my book.
Yeah.
She is like training this kid in how to be invisible and how it's going to work.
Exactly.
But she's wrong.
Well, yeah, right. And so there's usually a twist there, but usually you're either getting trained to do something or you're training somebody to do something. Like, so you can see
is training at the Capitol and she's learning from Haymitch and all that.
Right. No, but the B story has to do with themes. So like PETA is saying, I want to learn how to be a moral person. He says, I mean, he openly says, like, the Capitol can take everything from me, but they can't take my right to be my own moral person, you know? And she's like, I just want to win. Like, I just want to stay alive and stay alive. So she's kind of like saying, I have turned my back on morals.
There's no morality
I'm just going to survive.
Right.
And then by the end of the story, of course, she's like, you know, actually, I do have my morals, and I'm not going to just survive. She's ready to take
save you too.
Well, she's ready to take those poisonous things because she's like, you know what? I will choose my death rather than have the Capitol choose all of this, make this happen the way that they said that it's going to happen. So that's the epic climax, whatever. Okay, the fun and games section is the most fun, and it's probably the part that you think about the most when you're writing the story. This is the movie reel. So if you're doing like a Batman, this is where all of the fun scenes in the movie trailer come from.
And like they call it also the promise of the premise. Like when I tell you I have a story about a little girl who's going to try and do bad things to become visible, what pops into your mind? Like, oh, at school, oh, at home, is she destroying things? Is she embarrassing people? Is she trying these crazy big pranks? So that's where you actually have time to do those things, and you have a good 30 or 40 or even Hunger
50.
Games, we're in the arena running around for our lives,
shooting people, right? That's what they promised, and then that's what you do, and hopefully you make it as cool as you can. And then your midpoint is when things stay the same but they change. So change but stay the same. So you're still doing the same things, but the stakes get higher.
It's also usually either a moment of false victory, or it looks like a victory, but it's not, or real victory, or a moment where things get suddenly worse and the stakes, like you said, get higher.
So like if it's a victory, then the twist right at the very end of that chapter is like, but even though it's a victory, like with Hunger Games, I can't remember what the midpoint is exactly. I'd have to look. But I'm assuming it's a victory. It's when she pulls
she blows up the thing. That's what I think too.
So it's a huge major victory, but then the bitterness at the end is she still has to kill people.
Right.
She still has to do all the stuff that she had to do.
She's being proactive. She's being hardcore.
Yeah, and she's winning, but it doesn't matter because she's still stuck. Right. So you want to do something where, and this can be really subtle. So in mine, at one point, there's this girl. She's a fugitive on a train. It's a long story and it's a comedy, but she's trying to not be apprehended by a detective who is looking for her, the son of a detective. This is a teen story. And finally, in the midpoint, he finds her. It's the worst thing ever. Her entire journey is about to end.
Over.
Except that he says, I have done enough research because you've been feeding me these clues and stuff, that I actually believe you. I believe that you're not the one, and I am going to help you solve this crime.
So now we're teamed up.
Now we're teamed up. So,
and usually also the midpoint represents a point of where before we've been reacting, and here at this midpoint, we're going to take control of our own destiny. And I think Katniss, you can definitely see that it's the moment when she first is like, oh yeah, I'm coming to you. Yeah.
So at the same time that they're taking control, the bad guys are closing in, which means you need to have thought through this. I want you to write down over here. I want you to write in the margin, and I want you to write, think through your villain.
By the way, thinking about this midpoint this way was super helpful for me, because when I was planning this one about this girl, she wants her dad to see her. What if her dad dies? I had to think, what's going to amp the stakes up at the middle point? What's going to be there? And what I chose to do, I could have chosen her dad's actually dying now, but I didn't want to go there because I didn't really want him to die in the end. So what I chose at that point was that the friend she's made, the other invisible kid, she finds out he's being abused. And she
So
finds
all of a
out that
sudden
the
the stakes
stakes
are
for
real.
them becoming visible are so huge, and she now has to protect him.
Right.
So
right,
we've
right.
taken it, now she's getting more proactive, their plan is bigger.
Right. So they're still doing
Whatever
the same
it is,
thing.
just start
Same
asking
plan.
yourself, what are the questions? We're
Right.
still doing the same thing, but why does it suddenly matter so much more,
Right.
and why am I fully engaged?
If you have a villain, you need to have thought through your villain's plan enough so that when you get to the bad guys closing in, we, the reader, see that the villain has been active this whole time.
Right.
Which you can't, as you write, sometimes you shut your brain off and you're so thinking about what your main character is doing because that's whose head you're in, that you get here and you're like, I'm stuck. And that's because you haven't had your villain working off stage.
The bad guys can't close in because they haven't
been doing anything.
So fill the speech sheet out for your villain.
Yes, fill it out for your villain. In fact, I'm going to write that down. That's a really, I didn't write that for your homework, but that's a really good one, is to fill it out specifically for your villain. That's really good. Okay, your all is lost moment is when things are going bad and there's usually a little bit of a brush of death. Now in Hunger Games, there's an actual death. The little girl dies. Okay. A lot of people, they talk about this in this book. A lot of times it is metaphorical. For example, maybe you have a plant that you've been nurturing that somehow represents your thoughts on your relationship or whatever, and that plant will die. In mine, a candle melts, but the candle represents her epic romantic whatever. It doesn't matter. She believes in epic
Sometimes
romance.
in mine there's like a humongous storm coming, and it's been building and building, and then it's just this utter downpour, and it's just soaking everything in their whole plan. Right.
So you have an all is lost moment, and that's when they don't know. That's when they have the soul searching, and your soul searching is your dark night of the soul, and that's when you're open to,
it's your rock bottom if you're an addict.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Whatever it is. That's when you finally are open to the idea that maybe your hypothesis theme was wrong.
And maybe you are an utter failure. Yeah. I mean, really, it can be pretty devastating.
And depending on how high the stakes are, I mean, in Hunger Games, I totally cried. I sobbed when Rue died. I mean, it's super sad, you know. If it's a comedy,
and you just know she's
lighter.
Done. She can't protect Rue. She can't protect everyone.
She can't protect Peeta. Peeta's gonna, whatever. Okay, and then break into Act 3 is why you still have to fight. Why you must.
Now in Hunger Games again, that must be when they say, "Oh, guess what?
Peeta,
if you came with somebody, you can still stay with them forever." Yeah. Boom! Now we have a reason to fight, and that was very external. Yeah, I don't know.
It usually is. It almost okay. When you break into 3. Your darkest night and all of that usually is so dark that you can't climb out of it. And you usually need the external world to either give you a higher stake, a higher purpose that pulls you into fighting again, or you need a side character that pulls you into fighting again.
You need a powers in you moment, something.
Well, you need a powers in you moment at the end. That's at the end. That's at the very, very end. And so once you do the climax, though, so the climax basically is the entire story encapsulated in one big scene. So the climax is basically this whole thing again, where you have your plan and you're doing your plan, but it's kind of hard and whatever, and then you have your climactic moment where you have your deep, dark, soul-searching. But this time, you solve the problem.
You know something else.
Have dug deep by this time.
And the main character must solve their problem in this point at the end. Yes. This is the part where no one can come save them. Right. Someone can have told them the thing that's going to magically help them. Right. Yeah, and so that's what I guess what I'm referring to in the break into Act 3 with the powers in you moment. You realize how to use the powers in you in the climax, but it seems like right before that is when we give you the moment. So when the random sidekick finally says, well, you know, blah, 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 so or whatever. Your final clue needs to be in the break into Act 3. So if it's a mystery, it's your literal final clue. And it's not really your final clue. You think it's your final clue and it sets everything up, but often at the very, very end, just when you go to shoot somebody, you finally realize that your final clue you thought it was pointing to Heather, but really it points to Nikki, and she was right. But you don't find a new clue. You don't find a new physical clue. You just figure out that the clue points a different way. You never find a new thing. There's no new thing to find. Right. It's just that you might realize that what you thought you were seeing, you were not in fact seeing. And that's kind of what it is. Your night of the soul can give you some kind of clarity if
that works for your story, but you can't put that final piece together until the very end.
And it's the main character who puts it together here.
Mm-hmm.
So back here, you get the pieces you need to put it together here when you're in that final push.
Right. Then the final image, and this is really important, is when you go back to the original image,
and show me how it has changed.
Yep.
Do you know what? Nikki wrote this in my book, and I hated her for a whole week because she got to the end of my book and she goes, how has she learned? How has she grown? What does she know? And I thought Nikki was saying, this character has not learned or grown or done anything.
Right.
And I was like, how can you say that? But what she meant was, state it right here.
Right.
Don't, treat me, at this point, you treat the reader like they're a little dumb. And you have the character actually acknowledge how they've changed.
So like Harry Potter's so classic. It's just so classic. But he is with his family at the beginning, and he's not really a member of that family. And it's rough for him because he doesn't have a family. At the end, he has to go back to the Dursleys, but he has a family. He has a literal picture of his little family. They're waving at him.
With him at the Dursleys.
Yes.
And we know he's going to be okay.
Yeah, he's going to be okay. And he's going to come back to Hogwarts every year, and it's going to be epic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay, so now that we've done all that talking, we are going to stop. We are going to give you time to, I'm going to go over the homework. This homework is iterative. You could do this homework for weeks if you wanted to. Basically, your first assignment is to write about your setting. You can do this for 15 minutes a day. I just put 15 minutes, but you can do it as often as you want. You want to focus on motion, your five senses, and how your social order, your economic order, whatever you need to know for your world, how all of that works. And I want you to walk us through the actions of your character's opening image. So what we see them do in the first of the movie, so to speak. Walk us through that as if it's a movie on silent. Okay? Then you're going to sketch out your beat sheet with the current idea you have for your novel. And then, and not too long. Just don't go on and on. And then pick 3 beats you think are lagging in coolness. And you're going to brainstorm things that could happen. So right now, we are going to do either this bullet point right here, the second one, or we're going to do the third one. If you know your beat sheet well enough, don't fill it out right now. Just go right on to brainstorming some of those key sections. If you don't know your beat sheet very well, this is a great time to just free write, just fill it out. And as you get stuck or as you get new ideas that change the paradigm of what you've already written, just throw it away. Be very brave to just throw old stuff away. Don't get too tied to your written stuff.
This is when you can freely throw it away because you didn't just spend 300 hours actually creating the prose.
That's right. You didn't create the prose for it. That's good. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let you guys go. Sorry we talked so long. Okay, have fun. Hello, here we are. We're back. Hopefully you had fun doing some plotting.
I did.
So, I did too. Actually, shoot, I said I would check the chats, and I did not. Oh, nobody's here. Chat us.
Oh,
otherwise we're alone in the world. Okay, so for our next exercise, we're going to have you fill out the beat sheet specifically for theme. So you said, what does that mean to you? You've started.
Me?
Yeah, do you want to go?
Well, I think what I said to Nikki was I think my stories are kind of all about theme. Like, because I write middle grade and YA contemporary, and so almost everything about my book is like this emotional dialogue about the theme. Sometimes I wind up lacking in plot and having to find that.
You got it. So you might need to brainstorm a lot for
plot.
The
That's me. I know my theme like the back of my hand. I know exactly how that arc will be satisfying to me.
So you could brainstorm for fun and games.
Fun and games, and then bad guys close in. Like what exactly
what does that mean?
Happening?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So for mine, it's more. I'm writing a sequel to the current novel. Well, I plan to once I finish
her current novel that's coming out.
I know, super excited.
6 months.
Yeah, May 9th. I know, right? So it's amazing how busy it keeps you, even though it's 6 months away. But so I'm just gonna walk you through mine just super fast. For opening image, I'm not going to tell you what she's doing. I'm talking only about theme. This is what I want you to do for yours. She is emotionally overconfident. She feels. So the theme of the first book was her finding this confidence. So in the second book, though, now she's confident, but she's overconfident. The stated theme is, I can hurt people to get what I want because I'm better than them, basically. She's going for, she has a higher
up
cause.
against villains.
Yes, she's going up against hardcore people, some of whom murdered her sister, and she has a higher purpose than them. So it's okay if she hurts them. And then there's this gang, and there are two factions of the gang. She, for her own purposes, she needs one faction to win. The catalyst or whatever is that side does not have the manpower to take over the other side unless they have more people. So she's going to join the gang. They want her to join the gang personally, even though she's not like in that scene really. So the debate, once she starts to join, at first it's kind of friendly. She's with her own friends, and she's just kind of pretending to be a gang member, and it's, can she even be bad enough to do just that? But then break into Act 2 is like she's with real gang members, and they are trying to persuade other real gang members to turn against a gang member who no one can support, but he has a lot of power. He's just a bad guy. Okay, B story, I don't even know it yet. Fun and games, we're gonna be like shopping with gang members, going to gang meetings, dressing like a gang member, facing her parents or her
all these things that you think when you read the back cover, oh my gosh,
you're like, what would that be like? You know, she's this AP student, you know, very whatever, very straight-laced. Anyway, I don't even know what the midpoint is, whatever. The villain's gonna have like minions. I don't know.
But bad guys will close in because they will be bad and they will close in.
Exactly. So you can see that I'm still.
She has a weaker point that she needs to brainstorm.
I'll definitely be brainstorming that one for sure. But I know that the all's lost moment is that her actions, because she's basically double crossing somebody within the gang. She's not double crossing her main friend, but she's trying to get information about her sister, right? So she purposefully is double crossing this other person because she's trying to, anyway, get the upper hand on it. But whatever. Because of this double cross, that's going to lead directly to a murder. So she didn't commit a murder, but her actions lead to a murder, which puts her in a dark night of soul. And is she really a good person? And what is she doing this for? And is she just another bad person causing bad things to happen in the world and whatever? And then in my personal case, because this might be a 3-book thing, we're going to just end it there. We're going to do like, I'm going to try to do like a Empire Strikes Back, where at the end
it's really bad.
It's just bad. And then of course you have to read the next one. And that's pretty common for like that 3-story arc. And we'll see if I keep that that structure.
Right now it will end with a big failure.
Right. Yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. And in fact, we're gonna kill off a main character and then that'll be it. You can't see which main character is this? Okay, continue. So anyway, okay, but let's go ahead. We're gonna give you some more plotting time, and I want you to go ahead, pick a spot, reread yours, pick a spot where you're weak, get a blank piece of paper, and just write. Don't let your pencil really stop. So write down cool ideas, lame ideas, scary things that could happen during the villain's closing in section. 5 cool things that could happen in the fun game section, whatever you want. But go ahead and start brainstorming for that.
Oh, you're awesome. Go. We'll just sit here for a bit.
I'm going to turn it around, dang it.
Shh. Turn it off. Shh.
here we are. We're back. Okay, hopefully this has been...
That was so helpful, and I just figured out who it is. I just figured out something awesome. His aunt.
There you go.
They don't need to know this, but he has this crazy aunt who's K-drama obsessed, but who
Nice.
lives anyway, and they always like they eat junk food together.
She's plotting out who her B story person is. You don't necessarily want your B story person to be the main person. It can be Peta is Peta, and he's the main person, and that's who the B story is about. But he's the B story because Gail was there first, frankly. Right. So you do need to have somebody who's not present right at the beginning for your B story. So you can brainstorm your B story right now if you want, or I was thinking we could brainstorm our villains right now. And so what you want to be doing is you're not really necessarily brainstorming through your beat sheet, but you're brainstorming what your villain has to be doing in order to make your main character be hopping in the bad guy's close in. What is your... And it can't just be like suddenly randomly they pull a gun. Like that's not cool enough. They need to have been implementing a plan, and it needs to, like, the plan needs to kind
of follow and mirror some of this.
Yeah, well, yeah, usually, especially in your case where everything is sort of theme oriented. But like in a I always talk about him, James Bond. In a James Bond, he can just be doing villainous stuff. It doesn't really have to do with necessarily.
He could be just planning to blow up the world or whatever.
Blow up the world one more time.
Because you have to seed those things all the way through. Or
right, but he has to have
up the world at the end. You're like,
right, but you have to notice. You have to find out, like about a third of the way into the novel, that he has this plan that the main character has been falling into this trap the whole time, and toward here we find out that the trap is fully set and that the main character is fully in the trap, which means you need to know what the trap was. So either start brainstorming for your villain or start brainstorming for your B story. We'll give you just 2 minutes on that, I'm sorry. And then we'll wrap up and you can keep plotting. Okay. Our advice really works.
We had a breakthrough in 2 minutes.
I know. Okay, so that just totally made me think. You guys just totally solved the plot thing for me because I just said that the villain needs to set a trap, and now I know exactly how my villain is setting his trap. I'm so excited. So she's trying to dig through the gang for this information about her sister because she's just convinced that these gang members have information about how her sister died. But the villain, the trap is that he's giving them that information. He is the murderer and he has it. Remember, she's obsessed with thinking it's a conspiracy, but it's not. All he has to do is
feeding her clues that it is.
All he has to do is feed her clues that it is. She starts thinking all these people are more and more evil than what they really are. She falls right into his hand, and
you can then explain
happens.
why she finds all these makes all these misassumptions.
And that's why he gets to
Otherwise,
murder.
she just looks stupid. She's not stupid. She's the victim of a humongous hoax.
So he's actually hoaxing the conspiracy.
Yay!
Yes! And now you have no reason to read my second book, but
We're all done.
should. I'm excited anyway. Okay, that's super exciting.
That's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, we are all done. Next week we have no webinar because here I'm gonna move this
because we believe in the Cougars.
Yes, next week BYU, Utah football. Thing.
Also fall break, all the things.
Yeah, we're just not gonna do it. That's true. It's fall break next week. But 2 weeks from today, we're gonna do
our final webinar.
And it's gonna be on
session, and it will be about something so awesome.
No, it's gonna be not on YouTube, dork.
Oh, Facebook Live! I'm like, what is the dang topic for next week? No,
we're gonna do Facebook Live. This will be perfect for it because we promised to talk less next time. So because
we do promise to smile more.
We will have small sessions on Facebook Live, but all you have to do is go on to Facebook/Nikki Trianco and make sure you like that page. And then Thursday at the right time, you can go to my webpage and I'll have it all linked up for you. Or you can just go to Facebook. But you're basically just going to go onto my Facebook feed and there should be a video there and you just participate via Facebook and it should be really easy. And we can stop and start the videos and we can do several and then I'll patch them together and you can still watch it after the fact. Just
on
like
YouTube,
always. Just on YouTube, just like
awesome.
always. But it'll be good for us because our readers are expecting these kind of things from us as authors. If we want to have readers, we kind of have to do.
It's true, and Facebook Live is like the new crazy thing,
and it's where
we're gonna experiment with it. We'll probably fail a bit.
No, and then you get to film with us. Okay, we'll see you guys 2 weeks from now.
Not 2 weeks. Have a good night. Have a good 2 weeks and get that novel plotted. I am committing.
One thing, I will have your homework graded by tomorrow. Send me your new homework. And I wrote in the email wrong. I wrote that the final webinar would be next week because I forgot that we were going to skip that week.
She's a liar also.
I will resend out that schedule. Okay, adios.
Thanks.